right hand or set yourself down. You solemnly swear affirm under penalty of perjury your testimony in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Have a seat, pull yourself up close to the microphone. May inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state your name?
Caleb Worley.
What's your occupation, Mr. Worley?
I'm a forensic scientist in the firearms identification section at the Columbus Police Crime Laboratory.
And what is a forensic scientist?
A forensic scientist is someone who looks at evidence related to a crime scene and then comes to scientific conclusions after examination.
And what level are you?
I am a forensic scientist too.
And what is it for sense two?
A forensic scientist 2 is a bench level examiner, so it's our job to do the day-to-day examination of evidence that we receive.
Would you please go through your formal training and experience you've had with your specialty?
To start off, I have a Bachelor's of Science in Forensic Biology from Ohio Northern University. From there, I started my career working with the Connecticut Division of Scientific Services, which is the state of Connecticut's state crime lab. I received my initial training in the field there. It was a modular program put on by outside contractors, but it covered everything from the manufacture and evolution of firearms, how they've changed over time, the same for ammunition components, so how ammunition has evolved over time as well. There was also a heavy microscopy section to it, looking specifically at the comparison training part. So looking at cartridge cases and bullets fired from the same gun versus cartridges fired from a different gun. There were also a series of factory tours. I've toured Smith & Wesson, Savage Arms, as well as Wilson Barrel to see how firearms are actually made. And then I've also toured Drill Masters and Eldorado Tool, which makes a lot of the tools that those manufacturers use to produce their firearms.
And have you written any articles?
I have one article published in the AFTI Journal that's put out by the Association of Firearms and Toolmark Examiners. It's the scientific group that that covers our discipline. But that article is on cartridge interchangeability, so which cartridges can be fired in different guns.
And was that peer-reviewed?
Yes, that is a peer-reviewed scientific journal.
And peer-reviewed means?
That there's other scientists and other firearms examiners that look at it, edit it, and then submit it for final draft.
Have you ever testified as a forensic scientist in a court of law?
Yes, I have. I've testified in the state of Connecticut as well as Franklin County Court here in Ohio, and this roughly 17 times.
And so let's back up a little bit. You just told us what a forensic scientist is. What is the subspecialty, or is it firearms and tool marks identification?
So firearms identification, we're looking specifically at firearms components, so ammunition, and then guns and firearms themselves.
So what do you compare bullets, cartridges, and see what weapon they've been fired from?
Yeah, so it's a comparison of spent bullets and spent cartridge cases, as well as looking at the guns to see if it's operable.
So operability, and then you're looking at comparing bullets and cartridges.
Correct.
Is it always possible in a case where you have a bullet to compare it and make that determination?
So there are different conclusions when it comes to comparison that a scientist can come to. There's identification, meaning that, well, say for example, let's look at a cartridge case to a gun. If I'm comparing a cartridge case to a gun and I say identification, I'm saying that that cartridge case has been fired from that particular gun. There is elimination, meaning that the cartridge case was not fired from that gun. There is inconclusive, meaning there are some characteristics that are discernible, but there may be not enough agreement or too little agreement to come to a final conclusion, whether of identification or elimination. And then there's also unsuitable, meaning that there are no characteristics there for comparison.
Okay, and you talk about characteristics. What do you mean by this?
So I'm looking at class characteristics, which are, they're designed by the manufacturer. So that would be cartridge designation, bullet diameter size or caliber of the bullet, the number of lands and grooves in a barrel, and then the direction of twist. I'm also looking at individual characteristics. Those are incident to the manufacturing process. So as the tools drill out and create those firearms, that tool is always changing. It's always imparting different marks on each firearm.
So let's, since we're going to be talking about some bullets and stuff, can you at least give us a little education as to the terms and the components of ammunition?
So there are 4 components to ammunition. There is the bullet that will be loaded into here. Inside is the propellant. On the back side is a primer. And then all of that is held together by the cartridge case. The way it works is that a firing pin will strike the primer, which sets off a little explosion. The sparks will travel through into the main chamber where all of the propellant is. That will burn really hot and really fast. Those expanding gases then force the bullet out and down the barrel.
Okay, so identify what's the cartridge. Show us the cartridge.
So this would be the cartridge case. This whole thing is what holds it all together, but that would be the cartridge case.
And then the projectile
Is the bullet. So it would be stuck down in there.
Now, you mentioned when you do this, you look for lands and grooves and rifling. Can you explain to us what that's all about?
So lands and grooves are like the spiral twist that you see in a barrel. The purpose of those is to impart a spin on the bullet. Think of a football. The better the spin, the better and straighter that football will travel. So it's much the same for a bullet. The raised portions in the barrel is what we call the land. And then on the bullet, it will be the lower area. And then in those specifically, that is what we use for comparison.
Okay, and are these, is every gun made differently? I mean, do they show characteristics that you would be able to compare to the bullet that would exclude other?
A lot of the same manufacturing processes are used for every gun, but keep in mind the tools that are used to make those guns are always changing due to wear and tear. Each gun also goes through various use and abuse, which also creates other individual characteristics to look at as well.
Now, were you asked to do a comparison in this case involving the defendant, Michael Jason Meade?
Yes, I was asked to look at some cartridge cases, spent bullets, and 2 firearms as well.
And when did you do that examination?
It was back in early 21. I don't remember the exact date.
Okay, do you have a copy of your report there?
Yes. So it would have been June 24th, 2021 through July 7th, 2021.
And what was requested of you?
I was requested to look at 2 firearms, a rifle and a pistol, 6 cartridge cases, and then a series of spent bullets and fragments.
Okay. So when you said you were asked to look at the pistol and the rifle, why were you asked to look at?
So the request was to determine if both of those firearms were operable, and then to compare the spent cartridge cases and bullets to the rifle.
So I'm going to hand you what's marked as State's Exhibit. G. Okay, if you take that out.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what that is?
So this would be a Smith & Wesson 45 auto pistol, and I recognize it by the case number and then my initials on the white tag.
Okay, and that's the pistol that you were asked to examine in this case.
Yes, it is.
Can you explain to us first what type of gun is that?
So this is a Smith & Wesson M&P 45 semi-automatic pistol. it fires a 45 auto cartridge case. And when I say semi-auto, I mean that for each time you pull the trigger, only one cartridge will discharge.
Okay, you kind of explained to the ladies and gentlemen, are there different types of pistols?
So there are, when it comes to handguns, there are pistols like this, and then there are revolvers. With this particular one, a pistol, the ammunition will go into the magazine. The magazine will then be inserted into the mag well and the grip. In order to load and fire this particular gun, you would then have to pull back on the slide, let it go. As the slide is let go, it will pull the top cartridge in the magazine off and will put it into the chamber. You then squeeze the trigger, the firing pin is released, that fires the cartridge. Afterwards, the reaction from the cartridge will push the slide back. As it does so, there is a hook on the side that will grab the cartridge case that has been spent, pull it out. There's a little rod in here that will then kick it out of the gun. The spring is, or the slide is under spring tension, so it will get pulled forward, and then as it does so, it will pull off the next round that's been loaded into the magazine. The other type of handgun would be a revolver, whereas you have a single barrel, but instead of a magazine like this, you would have a cylinder with multiple chambers in it to put the ammunition. Every time you fire, that cylinder will then rotate and bring the next cartridge in line to fire.
Okay, now in this, there's a clip that you picked up. That's State's Exhibit 2H. Is that the clip that was provided with this weapon?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then we also got, you could identify State's Exhibit 2I.
It would be ammunition that was received with the firearm.
Okay. And the clip that you've indicated, you kind of stuck it in there. Does it stick out that far? How far would that clip stick out in that gun when it's in the weapon?
Fully inserted, the magazine will stick out and look like this.
So about an inch and a half?
Inch and a half, couple inches.
What's the magazine capacity in that gun?
I believe it was 14.
So now, can you explain, do these weapons, do they have safeties?
Yes, this particular firearm has two safeties.
Okay, here's what we'll do. Can he approach, Your Honor? I just want him to show the safety on the gun.
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe you'll see it from here.
I don't know.
You want me to come down? So this particular gun has two safeties. There's one on the trigger. I don't know if you all can see the little hook there in the back. In order for this to work and for the trigger to be pulled, the bottom has to be squeezed to get that hook out of the way. Otherwise, the trigger will not be allowed to go back all the way. The other safety is the thumb safety. To engage it, flip it up, and that prevents the trigger from being pulled. To turn it off, you would just flip it down. So if you were a right-handed shooter, flip it up and then flip it down.
So when the safety is flipped up, Aaron, can I hold that up so everybody can see? That keeps the slide from moving and the trigger from being pulled.
It at least keeps the trigger from being pulled. I don't know about the slide.
Okay. Keeps it from being fired.
Yes, it keeps it from being fired.
So you were asked to examine the weapon for operability.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us how you did that and what your results were on the operability.
So that examination includes looking at the basic information of the gun, so the make, model, serial number, and then the cartridge that it's designed to shoot. It's also determining what type of gun it is. In this case, it's a semi-auto pistol. Part of that is also looking at the safeties present and then determining whether or not they function. After all that has been done and all those observations have been noted, I will take it to our range in the crime lab, pick the right ammunition, and then I will test fire the gun in our range or a water tank to determine if the firearm is capable of discharging a live round.
So you actually fire the weapon into a tank of water,
Yes,
and then you to see whether it fires or not.
correct.
Did you do that in this case?
I did.
Was the gun functional and operable?
Yes, this was an operable gun.
Okay. And were you able to determine whether the safety was functional and safe and working?
Yes.
And yes, meaning?
Yes, those safeties were, the thumb safety as well as the trigger safety were both functional.
Sorry. Okay, I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 2CCC. Okay, it's, I think we're going to put it up on the screen, but you take a look at this, and I think it's going to just so Josh gets the photo. Does that appear to be the same type of weapon that we're dealing with here?
Yes, it does.
It's 45. And it's showing the clip that's in, or that's inserted in the gun.
Yes, it's showing the magazine inserted into the magwell.
Do you know how many extra rounds that allows someone to carry?
I believe it's probably 2 or 3.
And do they make bigger clips for these guns?
Yes, there are bigger clips out there. For pistols, the largest I've seen is 30 rounds.
Yes, go ahead. You recognize what State's Exhibit 2CC is?
It looks like the pistol that is here before me that I examined.
Cameron, may we publish?
You may.
Okay, I don't know, can we use your pointer again? Thank you. All right, Mr. Worley, would you, where is the safety located on that weapon?
So you have the trigger safety here, as well as the thumb safety here.
And then the position that that thumb safety is in, right there, is that safety engage on,
That safety is up and turned on.
which would prevent the weapon from being fired in that, with the safety on?
Correct.
Pull the trigger, it does not fire.
You shouldn't be able to pull the trigger with the safety on.
And you tested the gun and the safety does in fact work.
Yes, it does.
You just,
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that.
and was that your findings on the operability of that weapon, or was it to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Yes, they were.
Now, what was the next weapon you said that you were asked to examine?
The second weapon was a Daniel Defense DDM4 5.56 millimeter rifle.
And I'm going to hand you. You need a table over here or something. I'm going to hand you what's marked as State's Exhibit. Is that 3A? Can you identify that for us, please?
Yeah, so again, the white tag has the case number as well as the item number and then my initials on it.
And what is that?
This would be the Daniel Defense 5.56 rifle that I was asked to examine for operability as well as for comparison in this case.
And State's Exhibit. Three B
This would be the magazine that was received with it.
and three C.
These are the live rounds that were received with this firearm.
Now, let's start with the operability first. Did you examine that gun? Tell us what you went through to determine whether that weapon was operable.
So the operability examination for this gun was the same as for the pistol. It's going through looking at the make, model, serial number, and determining the type of firearm that this is. It was also noting any of the accessories that were present, such as the red dot scope and then the shoulder sling. Once all of that was done, then I would have test fired the gun. Since this particular gun is both a semi-auto.
We'll get to that, okay? Okay, so now let's go through the components of the weapon. So what is this red dot scope that it has on it?
So a red dot scope is just another aiming system. Instead of using the traditional front sight and rear sight, it's an electronic sight that has within here a red dot. The red dot replaces the sights, so essentially, if the gun's sighted correctly, wherever the red dot is where the bullet will go.
Okay, so basically look through it, aim it, I got the red dot on the target, it should hit that target where I've got the red dot.
That is correct.
It helps the shooter then be more accurate in shooting.
That I don't know about that, but it's just another sight that is out there that some shooters can use.
Okay. Now, what type of ammunition does that gun use?
This gun is chambered for 5.56 millimeter NATO.
Now, you said what type of weapon is it?
Its model is DDM4, but the platform that this is an AR-15.
Okay. And is there also a military version?
There is a military version of it. The most commonly known one would be the M16.
Now, the 5.56, okay, bullet, that's what you used in this weapon?
Correct.
We've also heard somebody mention it. Is it what's the other? 223? What is that?
223. 223 and 5.56 are essentially the same round. There's little variances between them. You can fire a 223 in a 5.56, but it's not recommended to shoot a 5.56 in a 223.
How fast does a 5.56 bullet travel?
It travels approximately 3,000 feet per second.
And in 20 feet, how far would, how long would it, in 20 feet, how long would it take for a target to be hit firing a 5.56?
It's approximately 7 thousandths of a second.
Really fast. Now let's talk about the other components on the weapon. You say it has a strap. Is that to hold the weapon?
Yeah, so it's a shoulder strap. You could throw it over your shoulder and wear it that way.
Can you tell us how that works? You explained how the pistol works. How does that one fire and operate as far as, yeah?
Okay, so this one is, it's a select fire gun. So this one is capable of firing in semi-auto and full auto. So remember, the semi-auto is each time you pull the trigger, one cartridge will be discharged. With a full auto, the gun will continue to fire with one trigger pull until either you let off the trigger or the firearm runs out of ammunition. To switch it, there is the thumb safety here.
May you approach again so they can see? So this is the modes of fire. Is this called select fire?
Yes,
Okay, and there's only 2 modes, correct?
there are 2 modes.
Okay.
So there's a little lever here that you rotate. You would rotate it once for semi-auto, one more for full auto.
Okay, now I hear it clicking, okay? I assume the manufacturer has made it so that that's not easily switched from one mode to the next.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Well, he's the expert.
Overruled, if he can answer it.
There are recesses in here on the internal part that's has like a spring tension to keep it locked in place and so you don't accidentally move it from one mode to the next.
Okay, so the first is safe, correct?
Yes, the first
Now-
would be safe.
Now, if you were a right-handed shooter, okay, how would you, if you can, I don't know if Drew's back here can see. Okay, just could show everybody.
So as a right-handed shooter, you will take your thumb and just rotate it around into the mode that you want to use to fire.
So it looks like there's 2 movements that you make with your thumb. One, to get it into, if you were getting it into full automatic.
Yes, if you wanted to get it into full automatic from safe, you would have to move it twice. It's a 180 degree movement.
Okay. And it clicks in each and engages in each mode.
Yes.
Okay. You want to put them down here?
So this would be safe, semi-auto, and then you rotate it again 180 for full auto.
Okay, you can go ahead and resume your seat. So in testing that weapon, how do you go about testing to see if it's operable or works?
The initial testing for the semi-auto would have been done, I believe I shot it into the water tank, but it would have just been 1 round at a time.
That's because it's in semi. That would mean that you pull the trigger each time to shoot it.
Correct. And then to test the full auto capability of the gun, it was taken into the range. 3 live rounds were then put into the magazine, and then with the gun in full auto, I pulled the trigger and let all 3 be fired.
Okay, now you went into a different area to do the fully automatic, correct?
That's correct.
And tell us about recoil. Can you educate the jury about recoil?
So every time you fire a gun, there are the hot gases that push that bullet down the barrel. Well, for every reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the cartridge case is then getting pushed back against the back of the gun in your shoulder. That's called recoil. The typical effect of that is that the gun will rise up a little bit, which is why when shooting into the water tank, you shoot 1 at a time, reposition the gun if you need to. The full auto was taken into the range because for safety, and also I had a wider range to shoot in because the gun kept coming up every time I fired.
And that's what you would expect when it's fully automatic. You expect a rise.
Yes.
And there is some still even recoil with a semi-automatic.
Yes, there is recoil with both semi-auto and full auto.
Why would there be more recoil with a fully automatic?
I wouldn't exactly say more recoil, but the recoil is going to build. With semi-auto, you fire the one and then you could bring the gun back down if you needed to. With full auto, that recoil is just going to keep building and keep rising the gun.
In what mode did you test this weapon in?
This weapon was test fired in both full auto and semi-auto.
Okay, and did both modes work?
Yes, both modes were functional.
And how about the safety?
Yes, the safety was also functional.
There's also in the box there, I believe there's a clip. Oh, I'm sorry, it's there. Okay, what state's exhibit?
3B.
And can you explain to us what that's?
So this would be the magazine. You would take the live rounds and load them in here. Each time a round is stripped off, the spring will push up the next one, so when the bolt goes forward, it can strip off that next round.
And what's the capacity of that
30.
And so that ejects where in that weapon there? It's inserted.
So the cartridge, the magazine would fit up in here. The cartridge cases would then be ejected out through this opening here.
Okay, so in this weapon, the cartridges are ejected right. Is that correct?
Yes, they're ejected out to the right.
Now, I do want to back up a little bit when we were talking about the safety.
Okay.
Suppose I'm a left-handed shooter.
Yes.
How would somebody operate that safety on the left, as a left hand? You can come up here and show that to the jurors too.
So the hold for left hand would be with your left hand on the grip and then using your left hand as the firing finger. To move the safety, you could use your thumb or your finger to move it, or you could come over and use your thumb
For a left-handed shooter.
for a left-handed shooter.
So it's the same movement as for the right, except you might use your finger as opposed to your thumb.
Correct.
Okay, and it's the functioning of it's the same. It clicks into place each mode that you put it into. Whether
Yes.
it's semi-automatic, safe, semi, or auto.
Correct.
Now, so that gun can be used both for a right and a left-handed shooter.
That is correct.
It functions the same for both.
Yes.
And where the shells you indicate eject from, though, will always be to the right.
Yes.
Now, is there something on there that would keep the shells from flipping up and hitting me if I'm shooting the weapon?
It looks like there is, it's called a deflector, which would be this component here. The purpose of that is most firearms that have the ejection port on the right will shoot or will eject the cartridge case not only to the right, but also to the rear. This here, the purpose of this would be to catch that cartridge case before it goes back and then to eject it forward.
Is that how that functioned when you fired that weapon?
I don't recall. I also had a wall probably 2 feet away from me that the cartridge case is bounced off of.
So in essence, to sum up, a fully automatic is similar to the M16, which is similar to the AR-15, which is a fully automatic. It's basically what some of us refer to as a submachine.
So this gun and then the M16 are both based off of the AR-15 platform. Yes, they both can fire in full auto. They'll both fire the same way. As for the classification of a submachine gun, that I don't know.
All right. Did you also then make a determination as to whether or not that gun was fully functional?
Yes, the safety on this gun was functional, and then it was also operable in both full auto and semi-auto.
Was that to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Yes.
So the next thing that was asked of you was to do what?
The next thing was to compare spent cartridge cases and spent bullets to this rifle.
Okay. And did you do that?
I did.
All right. What was the first thing that you looked at?
So the first thing I would have looked at were the spent cartridge cases. I would have gone through and looked at all their class characteristics. So remember, those are characteristics designed by the manufacturer. And then I would have also gone through and noted the individual characteristics that I observed as well.
Okay, I'm going to hand you what's been previously marked as States Exhibits 2A through 2F. You could look through those for me, please.
So these would be the 6 spent cartridge cases that I examined, and I recognize them by the case number, the item number, as well as my initials, and those are on each envelope.
Okay, what do you start with is that all 6?
Yes, this is all 6.
And what did you do? How did you examine those?
I would have used a comparison microscope to look at them and to do the comparison. A comparison microscope is 2 compound microscopes linked together over the top with an optical bridge. It allows you to see 2 items at the same time, side by side, and then there's a hairline in the middle that you will discern the difference between each one. But you can set them on the stage and then move each item independent from each other to get a different lighting angle. But that's what I would have used to look for those individual characteristics.
Okay, and to find those individual characteristics, did you have to fire something out of the weapon first?
So the initial characteristics I would have looked at from the spent spent cartridge cases that I received. To do the comparison, I would have collected test fires from the rifle, and then I would have compared the spent side by side with the test fires that I recovered.
And I guess maybe I jumped ahead. Were you done with the other portion of your visual
Oh.
comparison?
No, you're fine.
Okay. So, again, States Exhibit 3C. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that?
So these are the live rounds that were submitted with this rifle.
And can you pull one up and just kind of show what the components actually, when you're describing bullets, what is what on that?
So this little copper colored piece would be the bullet. The little silver colored piece in the back is the primer. This brass colored section is the cartridge case, and then inside is the propellant.
Okay, and what is the copper part of the bullet? What's its components, or what's it made of?
So this would be the bullet jacket.
What do you mean by jacket?
So the jacket, a bullet has a lead core in it, and then it also will have a jacket around it that's a tougher material. This particular one is brass, but the purpose of the jacket is to maintain the integrity of the bullet as it travels down the barrel. Because lead is soft, it could melt due to those hot gases.
I'm going to hand you what's marked as States Exhibit 3E.
So these would be the test fires that I collected from the Daniel Defense rifle.
And that's what you used to compare the bullets to the rifle.
Yes, these would have been used for the comparison.
What were your findings on the 6 shell casings?
The 6 shell casings were identified as having been fired from the Daniel Defense rifle.
And is that to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Yes.
So what was the next thing that you did?
The next items that I looked at were some spent bullets as well as some fragments.
If I just could have a moment. Bring up the stack.
Your Honor, again, we would stipulate that the shell casings that found at the scene were fired from that, and any of the projectiles that were examined by Mr. Worley were fired from that.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to hand you what's marked as States Exhibits, I believe it's 6A, or 6A and 6B. Can you identify those?
Yes, I've got my case number, item number, and initials on the side there.
Okay. And then 2K,
Again, I see my case number, item number, and initials.
And 2N
Yes, I recognize this one as well for the same reason,
and 2O.
and this one as well.
Are those the projectiles that you next looked at?
Yes.
Can you go through and tell us what you did and what your findings were on those?
So the comparison would take place the same way. I'd be going through, looking at the type of bullet that it is, the number of lands and grooves around it, the direction of twist, whether it's to the right or to the left. If the bullet was round enough, I would have measured the diameter to try to figure out what caliber the bullet is. Once I had done that, I would have compared them to the test fires from the gun. Again, looking at these lower portions on the bullet or the land impression. Think of it as what I mentioned, individual characteristics earlier. Think of it as taking a bar of soap and dragging it on a concrete sidewalk. You're going to see all those little valleys and dips, but that's the same kind of concept that I'm looking at on these bullets.
Okay. And so they were of good enough quality that you could make those comparisons.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's start with the number item 10 there, which is in the plastic bag. Okay, that states exhibit 2K.
Yes.
What is that?
So that would be a spent bullet that is deformed, and it was identified as having been fired from the Daniel defense rifle.
And does it indicate where that was recovered from?
The sticker on the bag says kitchen floor.
And I'm going to go by your item too, so my state's exhibit, but item 13, and that state's exhibit 2N. What is that, and where was it recovered, and did you examine that one?
So this would be another spent bullet that is deformed. The sticker says it was embedded in microwave oven, and it was also identified as having been fired from the Daniel defense rifle.
Okay, and item number 14, which is state's exhibit 2-0 or 2-0.
That is another spent and deformed bullet. The sticker says it was in north wall of kitchen, and it was identified as having been fired from the Daniel defense rifle.
Okay, and so then let's go to 6A. If you can identify what that is, you need me to open it?
Yeah, do you have scissors?
Scissors.
6A is another deformed rifle, deformed bullet.
Yeah, why don't you can you hold that up a little bit? Okay. All right, so it's, when you say deformed, it no longer has a point to it.
Yeah, the nose of this bullet has been broken off and also has been severely deformed.
And where was that found? And did you examine that?
The coroner's label on this one says projectile from chest, and this one was examined and compared and identified as having been fired from the Daniel defense rifle.
Okay. If you look at the next exhibit, which is 6B.
This bullet is also deformed. The nose of it appears to be broken off completely, but it was identified as having been fired from the Daniel defense rifle.
Now, you know, it appears that those bullets have suffered damage to them. Can you discuss for us a little bit as to what happens to a bullet when it strikes an object?
Several things can happen to a bullet when it hits a hard object. It could just mushroom around or expand, or it could just take the shape of the object that it hits. Some bullets, such as 5.56s, will fragment and break apart.
And so that you can end up with it going through whatever substrate it goes through. It depends on how much it would fragment.
Correct.
Harder the substance, more fragmentation, most likely.
Most likely.
Okay. Even striking the body, would it cause deformity in those bullets?
Yes.
So what was the next thing that you were asked? What was the next thing that you evaluated or looked at?
The next thing I looked at would have been,
Let me back up a little bit. Your test firings, that's 6D, did we already,
3D.
3D? Okay, these are the test firings that you use from the Daniel defense?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so let's move on. What is the, maybe 6B there. Oh, yeah, 6B. Let me back up. What's the location of 6B?
The coroner's label on it says projectile from abdomen.
All right, so to a reasonable degree of medical, or for scientific certainty, all those came from, or fired from, the defense Daniel.
Yes, they were all identified as having been fired from the Daniel defense rifle.
So what was the next items that you examined?
The next item I looked at was a spent bullet jacket fragment.
I'm going to hand you what's marked as 6C. Can you identify what that is?
ME04. If you want this one, it's A5.
Well, it's A5?
Yeah. Okay, okay.
This will be 6H.
It's got my case number, item number, and initials on the side.
And what is that? That's your,
So this is a copper jacket fragment. It's just a small piece of the copper jacket.
and where was that found?
The coroner's label says that it is a fragment from the left upper chest.
So what did you do? Were you able to make a determination on that fragment?
So this fragment was compared just like the other bullets that we talked about. However, the conclusion for this one was different. Due to this fragment being flattened out, the land impressions used for comparison were kind of wider and a little distorted. There were some fine individual characteristics that corresponded, but it was not enough to determine an identification. But the comparison result for this particular item was inconclusive, meaning I'm not saying it's fired from this gun, but I'm also not saying it's not fired from this Daniel defense.
What's the one I just gave you?
A1.
Okay. All right, so what was the next examinations that you did?
The next items that I looked at were a series of metal pieces.
All right, let's start with the first one. That would be your A1. What's my state's exhibit sticker?
6H.
And where was that recovered from?
The coroner's label says fragment from left upper chest. Oh, sorry. A1 is exhibit 6C.
6C.
Sorry about that. And then the coroner's label says fragment from external left leg.
And let's go to the next one. We'll just cover them all at the end, okay? So we'll go to 6D.
I recognize that one. The coroner's label says fragments from back.
Can you show us kind of what these fragments look like? They're very small?
Yeah, this one,
Maybe if you could just,
I don't want to pick it up and have it fall out. It's just a very, very small copper piece.
So it's just a very small copper piece that's in
Yeah.
there? Okay. All right,
You can use the elbow.
okay, that's good.
You want-
Thank you, Ron. So we're talking about this right here.
Yes.
Are you able to tell if that's lead or copper?
It looks like it's copper colored.
But you don't test for that.
No. This is 2.
So this was, number 2.
Yes. And the coroner's label says fragments from back.
Okay, you want to look at it?
So that small copper piece in there on the bottom.
All right, so they're just all just too small for you to compare, right?
Yeah, so these fragments were all very small. No rifling characteristics were observed on them. As such, because they have no rifling characteristics on them, there's no impressions there that are valuable for comparison. So all of these little copper and gray colored pieces were unsuitable for comparison.
And is this what we're calling fragmentation? When a bullet goes through something, these are little things that come off the bullet.
Yes, these are little pieces of the copper jacket as well as the lead core that break off from the bullet.
And these things are traveling pretty fast too, when the bullet's shot, right?
They're traveling as fast as the bullet is until they're broken off.
Okay, 6E.
I recognize 6E, and the label says additional fragments from left upper chest.
And 6F.
I again recognize this one. The coroner's label says fragment from left pleural cavity.
And 6G.
I also recognize this one. The coroner's label says fragment from right pelvis.
Okay, and I think we already did 6H because that was it's 6I.
I also recognize this one. The coroner's label says fragment from lateral chest.
We've already seen an example of the fragments you're talking about, so those would all be small ones as well.
Yes, they would all be small, either copper colored or gray.
Okay, and what was your examination of those? What did you determine on those?
I determined that they were all unsuitable for comparison, again, because they did not have any clear rifling characteristics, which is where you find the value for comparison.
And is that to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Yes.
You could just have a moment, Your Honor.
Any cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Good.
Good afternoon, Mr. Worley.
Good afternoon.
My name is Caitlin Stevens, and I, along with my co-counsel, Mr. Collins and Mr. Nolder, represent Jason Meade in this action.
Okay.
If at any time I go too quickly or you don't understand my question, please just ask me to rephrase or slow down.
Will do.
I noticed while you were handling the weapons in front of the members of the jury, you were really careful not to point that at anyone, correct?
Yes.
That's basic gun safety 101 is to never point your weapon at another human being, right?
The basic gun safety, from my understanding, is never point a gun at anything that you don't intend to shoot.
Now, even you, as a scientist, Mr. Worley, you have to assume that a weapon is loaded, correct?
Yes, when I receive a gun and handle it, the first thing I do is make sure that it is unloaded and empty. But yes, I treat every gun that I receive as if it is loaded.
And that's even in a clinical, sterile laboratory setting that you're able to examine these weapons in, correct?
That is correct.
I want to talk to you a little bit about, Mr. Schroeder spoke to you about the safeties on that weapon. You remember that conversation?
Which particular weapon are you talking about?
The safety on the 45.
Okay,
You said that there were two safeties, correct?
correct.
Now, at 20 feet away, Mr. Worley, if a gun was pointed at you, you wouldn't be able to see either one of those safeties. Is that correct?
I personally would not be able to.
Now, you've been on the stand for about 55-ish minutes now, you would say?
I haven't been keeping track.
That would
fair.
be correct.
That's
I'm
fair.
keeping track.
Thank you, Your Honor. And essentially, during those 55 minutes, we can sum up your testimony to say that the 6 casings that that were recovered at the scene and the 5 spent bullets that were also recovered at the scene came from the Daniel defense rifle, right?
Correct.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you so much, Mr. Worley. I have no further questions for you.
Any redirect? All right, you can step down, just leave everything there, take whatever's yours. And you can, I have a trash can here for your gloves.
Oh, there's your scissors back.
Your bullet. We'll come back about 3.
All rise.
caseygoodson90@gmail.com with Google reference number 464-55030.
So stipulated, Your Honor.
Good, well, be a minute.
We will go get our next witness.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear, affirm under penalty of perjury, your testimony in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Have a seat. Hold yourself up close next to the microphone. And you may inquire.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor. Sir, would you please state your name?
James Howe, Howe.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a police officer with the City of Columbus Division of Police.
What's your current position with the police department?
Currently, I'm a detective in the Digital Forensics Unit.
How long have you held that position?
I have been in that unit since 2018,
How long have you overall been with the Columbus Police Department?
22 years.
What other positions have you held within the department?
From 2001 to 2008, I was a patrol officer in the South Linden area. 2008 to 2013, I worked in our felony assault unit. And then 2013 to 2018, I worked in our homicide unit.
And in your current detective role, what are your duties?
I do mobile device exams, historical cell site analysis, computer forensic exams, historical cell site analysis.
And could you please tell us your law enforcement experience and education, particularly emphasizing the education and experience that allows you to do this digital forensics work?
In general, I went to the Columbus Police Basic Recruit Academy. That was almost 7 months that we were there. I've taken various training courses from private companies and from federal agencies, the FBI, the Secret Service, ATF. I've studied pretty extensively at the National Computer Forensic Institute in Hoover, Alabama, and that's where I have most of my training from.
And what types of crimes have you investigated in your career?
Everything from misdemeanors to aggravated murders.
Would you please tell the jury about your digital forensics search and seizure experience?
I have currently conducted 1,641 exams on mobile devices, 50 computer exams, and 159 DVR exams.
Do you have any industry certifications related to digital forensics?
Yes, I hold several certifications.
We've known Detective Howe for a long time. We're fine with his expertise if the prosecution doesn't.
Approach.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Your Honor. May I continue?
Sure.
Do you teach or lecture on digital forensic examinations?
Yes.
And what processes and tools do you use to investigate digital evidence?
For mobile devices, we use Celebrite Physical Analyzer, Celebrite's Premium, and Magnet Axiom.
And can you just explain what exactly these tools are, how they work, and allow you to look at the data that's on a particular mobile device?
Yes. So we'll research the device. We'll figure out which tool is best going to allow us to accomplish extracting the most amount of data from a particular device. And that's all dependent on the type of device, the operating system available. So we have, Apple iPhones, we have Androids. So both of the tools work pretty similar. Once we extract the data from the device, we'll then put them in these analysis tools, and we'll be able to generate a report for the detectives, prosecutors, defense attorneys.
So basically, it sounds like you're plugging into the device to some sort of machine that reads the phone, and then you use these applications then that you're describing, Cellbrite, Magnium, et cetera?
Yes.
Thank you. And have you been recognized as an expert when testifying about these matters?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. If you bear with me one moment. May I approach, Your Honor?
May.
Sir, I'm holding you an item that's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 5F.
Do I need to wear gloves?
If you wish. Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
And were you asked to analyze this item in connection with this incident involving the defendant, Michael Jason Meade?
Yes, I was.
And that's in relation to an incident that occurred on December 4, 2020 at 3996 Estate Place. Sorry.
December 4, 2020.
Incident at 3996 Estates Place in Columbus, Franklin County, Ohio.
Yes.
And in particular, what was the thing that I was showing you?
That is the Apple iPhone that I examined.
Was that Casey Goodson's Apple iPhone?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Did you prepare a report to document your findings with respect to your examination of that phone?
Yes.
Did you bring a copy of it with you to aid your testimony this afternoon?
Yes, I did.
Would it help your testimony to reference that as you're describing your findings with respect to the phone?
Yes.
And in connection with your investigation into the phone, were supplements of your investigation added during the pendency of this matter?
Yes.
Can you explain why you supplemented your investigation and analysis of the phone?
I was asked to dig a little deeper in a few areas and add some time frames.
What were those areas that you were asked to look into further?
Specifically Bluetooth connections with AirPods.
Thank you. And then any sort of application data? Were you asked to look at a particular application?
I was asked to look for some subway application data, and we had additional YouTube data.
Okay, now is that for YouTube or a particular YouTube app?
I'm sorry?
YouTube or YouTube video?
Yeah, I'm sorry, YouTube Music.
Thank you. So when you first, and before I get further away from the report, what's the date of the final report that you prepared in connection with your analysis of the phone?
January 5th, 2024.
So walk us through the process, beginning with the beginning of your investigation with respect to the phone. What did you do to get the data off the phone and conduct your analysis?
So on December 10th of 2020, the lead detective in the case, Art Hughes, had asked me to examine the device. When the device was brought to me, I discovered that it had been powered off, which in the forensic world, if we don't have a PIN code to the device, we're not going to be able to recover much data. So on that date, I did a really limited extraction called a before first unlock extraction on the phone. The following day, I contacted Detective Hughes, let him know that the device was locked with a PIN code and it had been powered off. He was able to then reach out to Agent Rob White and explained the situation to him, and Agent White was able to provide the PIN code. So on that following day, I was able to then extract what's called a full file system extraction on that device.
And that's using that process you've described of connecting the phone to a computer and using the Cellbrite app to grab a copy of the data on the phone?
Yes, so with this particular device, I used a tool that's called a Gray Key to extract all the data from the phone. And then once all the data was extracted from the phone, it's a piece of hardware. Once all the data is extracted from the phone, I then use Cellbrite's physical analyzer to put that image of the phone in for analysis and then be able to generate a report.
Now, alongside the extraction of the data from the phone, do you do a physical examination of the phone to actually look at the screen and see what applications are open on it?
Yes, following the forensic extraction of the device, as it was loading into the physical analyzer software, I did what's called a manual examination of the phone.
Why do you do a manual examination of the phone?
So we can verify the data that the tool's putting out and make sure that we're including everything.
And does that include looking at what applications are open on the phone?
Yes.
And why do you look at that?
It's just kind of a background to see what's going on with the phone, what the user may have been doing with the phone. I know in this particular instance, I was asked initially to look at location data, Bluetooth data, and subway data.
And in doing that physical review of the phone, did you notice that there were apps that were open on the phone for when the phone was last used by its user?
Yes.
And did those apps include YouTube Music
Yes.
and a Subway app?
Yes.
Was there identification information stored on the phone as to who owned it?
Yes.
And what did that information indicate?
So during the analysis, I was able to see that it was an Apple iPhone 11 Pro Max. Under the device name, which is user input, it was Casey's iPhone. And then there was an Apple ID associated with the phone, Casey Goodson 90 at gmail.com.
Thank you. And after you got the data off the phone with the Gray Key app, did you proceed to look at the data with Cellbrite?
Yes.
As part of that analysis, did you look at pedometer data on the phone?
Yes, through the health database on the Apple.
Can you talk to the jurors about what that entailed?
Basically, Apple has a pedometer in the phone that will track steps in your activity.
What did the data on the phone reveal about the pedometer?
Between the timeframes that I looked at, I had filtered initially to specific timeframes that Detective Hughes had given me. So at 12:02:41 p.m., the device logged 135 steps for a distance of 78.55 meters.
And can you tell us how exactly, based on your training experience, that pedometer app knows when to start and stop logging step data?
It bases it on movement and, movement.
Now, is that any movement?
It can be.
Or is it movement that would be like walking, like?
No, it could be walking. As I explained, or as I explain it to people, you can also move the device. So it's not an exact measurement. Just if you were to just shake your device up and down, it could potentially believe that to be steps taken.
Is your understanding it has to be an up and down type movement for the phone to track data?
I'm not certain. I know movement.
Now, with respect to this device, you said that during the relevant time frame you were directed to, you found an entry with a start time of December 4th, 2020 at 12:02:41 p.m.?
Yes.
And is there an end time listed for that pedometer data?
Yes, it's 12:12:16.
PM?
Yes, I'm sorry, PM.
And then there's a value that's produced by the phone too for the steps that were logged between that time frame, right?
Yes.
And what were the values obtained?
135 steps for 78.55 meters.
Did the device log any further pedometer data after the entry with the end time of 12:12, 16 p.m.?
Not for the timeframes that I looked at.
Now, you were also asked to look into Bluetooth, correct?
Yes.
Tell the jurors what Bluetooth is.
In this particular instance, it's how you connect wirelessly to like a headset to your phone.
Were you able to locate data about Bluetooth devices on this device?
Yes.
Did you look at the time frame of December 4th, 2020 to see whether there was any active Bluetooth data on the device?
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors what you found?
I filtered the data to the time of December 4th, 2020, between the hours of 11:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. I was able to find an entry for, I believe it's Nay's AirPods. And it showed so with Bluetooth, it'll show a paired entry, and it'll show a last detected entry. On December 4th, 2020 at 12:23:38 p.m., it showed that Nay's AirPods were detected at that time. I also found an entry that showed that those same AirPods had been paired.
Okay. So can you tell the jurors what this data entry of paired means?
Paired just means it was connected to the device
Okay, at some given time.
at some point.
Now, is there a last seen timestamp?
Last detected.
Last detected. What is the significance of that data that's stored by the phone?
It appears that's the last time that particular headset was detected by the device.
Okay, and what was the time entry for the last seen or last detected for Nay's AirPods?
That's December 4th, 2020, 12:23:38 p.m.
Now, was there also an entry as to whether the AirPods were set up to be connected if there was in-ear detection?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, so I went into that particular property list where that data is stored because it didn't parse out and just show it right in front of you to where you could see it in the software. So I dug into that, and I was able to locate a in-ear detection, and it equaled true, which in this case means it was activated.
So if in-ears detection is activated between the phone and AirPods, what is the significance of that?
It's a default setting by Apple that a user could potentially change. With AirPods, when you place them in your ear, that will then create that connection. If they're paired, it'll create that connection, and then you're able to listen to sound through the AirPods.
Now, does that setting also affect if the ear cause something to happen if the AirPods are removed from ears?
Yes, it'll detect if the AirPods are removed, and then that could potentially pause whatever sound you're listening to.
Could it also potentially result in a disconnection?
It can, yes.
So now, did the device keep a running log of the last connection time it had with the AirPods, or does it just show the most recent one?
From everything I could see, based on looking at this one and all the other Bluetooth connections that the phone had, it was just the last time that was detected.
So it doesn't keep a running log of every time the AirPods are connected, disconnected, et cetera. It only shows the most recent time.
Not that I found in either piece of software.
Thank you. And are you referencing another piece of software you used to analyze this device?
The Axiom software.
Thank you. Now, I understand that you had mentioned earlier in your testimony that you were asked to look into a history of YouTube on that device, correct?
Yes.
So in connection with that, was there an investigation into the Google account associated with Casey Goodson 90@gmail.com?
Yes, Detective Hughes provided me with information that Google had given him by a search warrant. And then I was specifically asked to look at YouTube.
Okay. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is a certificate of authenticity. Most companies, when we do, most internet-type companies, online companies will send us this verifying the authenticity of the files that they have sent us.
And that's referencing the files that you received in connection with the Google account for Casey Goodson 90 at gmail.com.
Yes,
And that's the data that you were able to incorporate and analyze alongside the data from Casey's phone itself, right?
yes,
So I understand that you were asked to see, look into the activity of YouTube music on the phone.
yes.
And I want to focus in on the time frame about 12 p.m. to the end of the Google Music data on the phone. And can you tell us about what you found about the use of YouTube Music during that time frame?
There was YouTube music playing at various times throughout that time frame.
And were you able to make a determination as to whether that was playing continuously? Between 12 p.m. and approximately 12:20 p.m.?
So there is an entry for 11:58:57 a.m. For a song, at 12:02:15 p.m. for a song, 12:05:30 p.m. for a song, 12:08:55 p.m. for a song, 12:11:49 p.m. for a song, 12:12:23 p.m. for a song, 12:16:23 p.m. for a song, and 12:19:50 p.m. for a song.
Thank you. Now, suppose evidence shows that Mr. Goodson was wearing AirPods at approximately 12:20 p.m. when he was receiving medical aid in his home. Do the Bluetooth data and YouTube data you analyzed on this phone allow any conclusion on whether music was continuously playing between 12 p.m. and this time when he was receiving medical aid?
If the AirPods were in the ear and it had the auto detection on, the Google data, along with the data I was able to pull off of the phone, would support that, yes.
Okay.
Any cross-examination?
Briefly, may I proceed, Your Honor?
Okay.
Good afternoon, Detective Howell.
Good afternoon.
1,641 devices. We've talked about a few of those, haven't we?
We have, yes.
I'll leave off where the prosecutor, I'll start where the prosecutor left off. And again, we know each other. My name is Mark Collins. You know my partner, Ms. Stevens. Mr. Nolder, we represent Jason Meade.
Yes.
I'll start where the prosecutor left off. You said a key phrase there, if the auto detector had been turned on, correct?
Yes.
So if it had not been turned on, then it would be a different situation, correct?
It could potentially still be playing, but not, it shouldn't be playing through the ear.
And nothing that you can tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury here today, you can determine whether or not the volume on those AirPods were at the lowest level, correct?
Correct.
They could have been at the minimum level, correct?
Yes.
They could have been at the highest level, correct?
Yes.
So none of your reports or anything like that, you can tell in any way, shape, or form with any certainty where that level was, correct?
No, that's not something that I've seen the device track that we're able to pull.
And, may I have a moment, Your Honor? Always good to see you, Detective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any redirect?
No, that's all we have. Thank you.
All right. Step down if you want to throw that. Trash can. Just leave everything, just leave it there. Your copy you take, but everything else stay. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury your testimony in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Have a seat. Pull yourself up close to the microphone. And Mr. Shaw or Schroyer, do you want to pick up your exhibit? Google.
Oh, thank you. I got it.
May I inquire?
Good afternoon, sir. Would you introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please?
My name is Arthur Hughes.
And where are you employed?
With Columbus Division of Police.
And what capacity are you deployed or employed with the Columbus Division of Police?
Homicide investigation.
How long have you been a police officer, Detective Hughes?
Since 1994.
Okay.
See, detective or officer?
Well,
Detective since 2004 and officer since 1994.
you came onto the department in
1994, yes.
1994, so you're counting days at this point.
Yes, sir.
You were, well, let's start. You're a homicide detective. You've been a homicide detective since when?
I went to homicide in 2014.
Okay? And within homicide, at least back in December of 2020, was there a squad called the CERT Squad?
Yes, critical incident response team.
Okay, and and were you part of that squad?
Yes, sir.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how CERT came into existence and the general responsibilities of the CERT Squad.
It was designed to have a consistent investigation involving police shootings, incidents involving murder of police officers, uses of force that cause serious injury involving police officers, shootings with police officers accidental shootings that could be misconstrued as being intent, purposely, accidental shootings that could believe that were purposely shot. But that's what we investigated.
Okay. And were you involved in, or have you been involved in a number of CERT investigations?
About 24.
Now, on a CERT investigation, when CERT is called out, is it a individual detective or is it a entire team that?
It's an entire team. Usually 6 detectives respond with 2 supervisors.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to go back to December 4th, 2020. Were you called out on a CERT investigation on that day?
Yes.
And where was the location of the incident that you were called out on?
3996 Estates Place.
Here in Columbus?
Yes, sir.
Franklin County?
That's correct.
Okay. What other officers were assembled on the team, if you recall?
Detective Bill Gillette, Detective Greg Shepard, Detective Dana Kroom, Detective Eric Wooten, Sergeant Poya, and Sergeant McConnell.
Okay. In the order of things, where were you in arrival at the scene?
I was the only one that's called in off duty. It was my day off, so I arrived fairly late.
So you were a pretty long distance away from.
Yeah, actually, I was out with my wife going to the grocery store, so.
Okay. So in the order of arrival out there, who arrived last?
Me.
Okay. Now, within this investigation, you have a number of detectives there. Are specific assignments given to the detectives?
Yes,
And I assume that's done by the supervisors?
yes.
Okay. What was your assignment?
I was assigned to be the lead coordinating detective.
Okay. And tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that means. What
So
does that entail?
it's a little bit different than a homicide investigation would entail. The assignments are made by the sergeant. When I got there, I was given that position. There are other detectives that were responding to the hospital, interview witnesses, canvass the scene, or look for, not at that time, but, surveillance footage. My job would be and there's also a scene detective, lead detective. My job would be, once they get their jobs done, I put everything together and gather all that information.
And then if there are further tasks that need to be done, are you the one that's expected to coordinate that
That's correct.
and perhaps do it?
Yes, yes.
So, and in coordinating the investigation, that includes you're reviewing the information that's gathered.
Yes, as I get it, yes.
You're making decisions as to are there things that need to have laboratory analysis and
Yeah, in this case, if there's, guns collected, ensure that their, operability is performed.
okay. Do you oversee or at least ultimately receive cruiser videos and body cam videos?
Yeah, the collection of that is done by one of the supervisors, but ultimately it ends up in my hands.
Okay. And at that time, Columbus police officers, their cruisers had videos
That's correct.
on them, and at least the uniformed officers wore body cams. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
And perhaps when you arrived at the scene, there were still uniformed officers on the scene then?
Yes, there was.
And in your review of the matter, you determined that there were a number of officers that had come to the scene. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir. There are quite a few.
So you spent a lot of time in the film room
Reviewing,
watching videos,
Yeah.
correct?
Among other things, yeah.
Okay. Did you also coordinate a search for non-police videos?
Yes.
Okay. And tell us what that entailed.
I initially signed on to a Ring app, and Ring would send out an alert to everybody in the area it's signed on, it has a Ring camera or has that app, and it's an alert requesting video. By that point, it had been the following week, Monday. Was also joined by the FBI on the investigation, and we would canvass the area looking for additional video, and also up on Ferris, looking for video on Ferris Avenue.
And you mentioned that you were joined by the FBI, like by the following, I guess the 4th was a Friday, by Monday or Tuesday of the next week.
Yeah, as it played out over the weekend, the FBI ended up being involved.
Okay, and was that unusual in your experience?
Yes, yes, it was.
Was it welcomed by you?
Oh, they were great. Yeah, they helped with a lot of workload.
Okay. Because while you're doing all this, you're still expected to carry a caseload as a
Yeah, still
homicide detective, is that
yeah, still
correct?
conducting my investigations on top, yes.
You know, and I'm sure you,
Still conducting my investigations on top of this incident.
so, know, in addition to this incident, you had other active investigations that you were working on.
That's correct.
So the opportunity to have extra pairs of hands and eyes and so forth.
It's welcome.
Okay. So from Monday on, that would be Monday the 7th, I think. You know,
Yeah, it'd be the 7th.
the FBI was involved, and they had assigned agents to coordinate
That's
with
correct.
you. Is
Yes.
that right? We were talking about searching for other videos. Were you able to locate any ring videos? Those are the, I'm assuming ring is
Yes.
the doorbell or the door.
Yeah, we weren't able to obtain any.
There were none in the area.
No.
Were you able to locate any other outside videos?
Yes, at St. Matthias Church over on Ferris.
Okay. In addition to that, did you at some point locate some videos of significance at a Subway shop?
The subway video is obtained by the FBI.
Okay, they're the ones, and then they shared them with you. Is
That's
that
correct. That's correct.
And you've reviewed those videos, is that right?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 14 and State's Exhibit 15. Do you recognize what those photographs depict?
There are surveillance images of the subway right there in the area of Carl and Morse Road.
Okay. And were those taken off of the videos that were obtained from that location?
That's correct.
I publish, Your Honor.
You may.
I'm going to first put up State's Exhibit 14. You recognize, or were you able to identify the individual depicted in that?
That would be Casey Goodson.
And that would be the decedent in this case?
Yes, sir.
And that's from inside the store, is that right?
Yes.
And this is State's Exhibit 15. That is a shot from where?
That'd be a shot. The camera's actually going southwest. Mr. Goodson is on the lot, just right of center. He'd be walking, yeah, he's walking kind of northwest in the parking lot.
Okay, and some of the picture or the still cut off the very edge, but do you recall where he's walking towards?
Yeah, his Nissan Versa.
Okay. And this video, or this still came off of a video that actually came from, I believe it's Saraga International Market, which is a grocery store out there in the same
Yes,
strip.
that was also obtained by the FBI as well.
Well, there's a time or a date stamp up here in the corner. That's not accurate, correct?
No, it's not. It's a day off.
And that, you learned that from your technician that downloaded it.
They're the ones that, yeah, to make the corrections. Excuse me.
I want to show you also what's been marked as State's Exhibit 14B and ask you if you recognize what that is.
That's going to be the Subway receipt,
Okay, for the
3 subs,
purchase that was made that day?
the 3 sandwiches, yes, sir.
Okay. And it's on 2 pages because it's the long.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, publish, Your Honor.
You good?
So that indicates that there were 3 subs purchased, is that correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
And we have the date and time when it was ordered at the top there, correct?
Yes.
And then on the second page, we have, that it was, the purchase information, I guess. Or
Yeah,
the
it's
payment.
through a mobile app.
Okay. Now, the video from St. Matthias, can you explain how the cameras are positioned or, at St. Matthias for the videos that you obtained?
Yeah, St. Matthias is positioned on the north side of Ferris. It is just east of Carl Road. You got one camera faces towards the intersection, kind of a southwest direction, and the other one is facing southeast towards Ferris.
Okay, and so one camera captures the intersection of Ferris and Carl, is that correct?
Yes,
And the other captures the intersection
Ferris and Estates.
of Ferris and Estates. I want to play for you State's Exhibit 13B, ask you if you recognize, and this is just a little clip, ask you if you recognize what's depicted in that. Stop it for a second here. Do you recognize what area is depicted in that?
Yes, that is going to be the camera that's positioned be southeast towards Estates Place.
Can he, if he touches on his thing, can he point things out? I saw a circle earlier.
What did you,
Click on the screen.
What do I have to click? Do I have to click something?
There's not a pointer.
I'm not going to touch anything.
You want me to touch the screen?
I can show them how to do it, yeah. It's there's a screen here. See those 3 buttons in the right-hand corner? Here you go, okay. Now you're gonna want this.
Okay,
So, just pick a color.
okay.
So, now you should be able to touch the screen.
So, you want me,
We just point out where Estates is. Okay. All right. Now, clear that off and go ahead and run the.
you gotta tell them,
Just hit the trash can button. Yes.
Didn't didn't know you were gonna have to work. Okay. I do? No, he does.
Now we play it.
It's not showing on our screen.
Oh,
Oh,
It's not working. I can't do it. So. I've touched it. Still got the.
dots in the far right corner. Close,
No, it's still shut that off.
close up there.
I shouldn't have had you touch the screen.
I thought there was like an end on it. The dots again. And then a line. Yeah, clear on end.
There you go.
Yes.
Back it up. Oh, actually, let's, okay, go ahead. Stop it for a moment. Now, the circle wasn't on. Can we approach?
Sure.
Okay. When you got the video, it didn't have the circle on it, is that correct?
That's correct.
But you viewed it with the circle. Other than the circle, is anything else changed in the video?
No,
Actually, I didn't change it, just an addition.
that's correct.
Whose vehicle is circled there?
That would be Deputy Meade's.
Defendant?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Stop it one more time. Let it run a little further. Stop. There's a truck there at the intersection. Do you know whose truck that is?
That'd be Officer Rosser.
Go ahead. Whose vehicle is circled in red there?
That'd be Mr. Goodson and his Nissan Versa.
Okay. Stop it again. Whose vehicle is that?
It's Deputy Meade.
Stop it again. Whose vehicle is that?
Officer Rosser.
Stop. They went further. Was that, did that video show the pertinent part of the entire video that you received relating to this case?
From that camera, yes.
From that camera?
Yes.
Now I'm going to show you a clip from State's Exhibit 13A. Bring it up there, but don't start it yet. I mean, you can get the opening picture. Maybe go a second in or something so we can see what, there, stop. This is the other camera view,
That's correct.
and what we're looking at is what intersection?
That's going to be Ferris and Carl Road.
Okay. And whose vehicle is circled in blue there?
That'd be Deputy Meade's.
There's a red circle coming in. I don't know whether you can see the vehicle, but you know whose vehicle that is.
That'd be Mr. Goodson's.
Okay. Go ahead. The vehicle circled in green is who?
That'd be Deputy Meade's.
Green?
Oh, I'm sorry, in green, I'm sorry. That's Officer Rosser. Yeah, that's, you're fine.
Now, was that the extent of the pertinent footage that you took off of the St. Matthias surveillance camera
Yes.
relating to this case?
Yes, sir.
And other than the circles, did that accurately depict the original video that you obtained from St. Matthias?
Yes.
And placing the circles on the, around the vehicles, did that change the flow of or movement of the vehicles at all from what you observed in the original?
Yeah, it didn't appear to affect it at all.
Okay. We're done with that. guess the original is further back, that's zoomed in a bit, is that correct?
Yeah, it's a little bit closer than the original, yeah.
But it didn't change any of the movements, just made the vehicles easier to see.
Yes, that's correct.
And in the video we just watched, Deputy Meade's vehicle was which color circle, if you remember?
The green one. Blue, I can't remember which one it was. I don't. It was the first one in line at traffic, and it was the first one to come back. So the second vehicle he came in contact was Rosser.
Okay.
Circle color, I can't.
Okay. There you go. The blue circled vehicle is,
Deputy Meade.
and it fairly and accurately depicts what you viewed in the video.
Yes.
In the course of the investigation, you collected some AirPods, is that correct?
Yes.
Tell us how they got to you.
I was contacted by Mitch Seckman.
And who is Mitch Seckman?
He's a Columbus police officer, but he's assigned to work with the federal prosecutor's office.
Okay. And what did he contact you about?
He had the earbuds.
And once you received them, what did you do with them?
I turned it into the property room.
Misplaced.
It's Exhibit 7.
I believe I found. Don't know quite how they got over there, but handed you what's been marked as case exhibit 7. You want to grab a glove there.
Thank you. You want me to open these?
Should be already open.
You recognize that item?
Yes,
What is that?
that's the earbuds.
Okay, and did they come to you packaged that way?
Yes, they did.
Not in the envelope, but.
Yeah, like this, yes.
All right. Also want to show you what's been marked. I'm not handling it. Gonna hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 5G.
Yep.
Examine that item, please.
It's Uncle Mike's gun holster.
Okay? Why don't you hold that up? And have you seen that before?
Yes.
And where have you seen that before?
In the property room and in photographs.
Okay? Is that the holster that was taken off of Mr. Goodson?
Yes, sir.
Now, hold it up there and explain to the ladies and gentlemen how it functions.
It's fairly simple. It has a clip. Go over either your pants, gun belt, or pocket. Obviously, your gun will go in there. It's a small pouch. No retention at all. It just sits in like a pocket. So
Okay. Now, when you say no retention at all, what do you mean?
there's nothing to hold the gun in place.
Okay, so I guess if you're vertical and the gun's in it and the holster's, the gun's in the holster, it's gonna stay there, right?
Should, unless you're running. I wouldn't run with this type of holster.
Okay, why is that?
It'll fall out.
The gun will?
The gun will fall, yeah.
Okay, and how about if you fall?
Yeah, it could fall out.
Okay. That is, from your experience with holsters, is that a very expensive holster?
10, 15 bucks.
Okay, and the material that it's made out of, is it
It's
like
like-
a hard leather or?
No, it's nylon.
Okay, so it's very flexible.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 20, and you tell me if you recognize it as a part of a body cam that you reviewed in this case.
Okay.
He's plugging it in here. Oh, I'm sorry. He's got to give you the sign. You recognize what that video depicts?
That was the south door of 3996 Estates Place.
The storm door?
Yes, sir.
And showing it closing from a 90-degree to a closed position
Yes,
in the way that it functioned?
yes.
Okay. Finally, Detective, I want to show you what we've marked as State's Exhibit 9A.
You ready?
Go ahead.
He came out the street, gun in his hand, going to the side door, going in with it. You guys were pulling out? Yes, as I was pulling out. Yeah, Joey asked for us to go. Who's in charge here? I was one that was on the scene. I was one that was initiated.
You recognize that video?
That's a body camera from Seth Penny.
Okay. From the Minerva Park?
Yes, Minerva Park officer.
Just a small portion of his body camera.
Yeah, that's just a very small portion.
Does it accurately depict what you collected from Minerva Park?
Yes, sir.
I want to show you what we marked as 9B.
Absolutely. Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
Okay. Discuss this case among yourselves. Do not permit anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence. It is your duty not to form or express an opinion on the case until it's finally submitted to you. For a couple minutes.
All right.
can have a seat, take a look at the video. And if you need to have it overnight, then
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may?
Thank you. Detective, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We've known each other for a long time, correct?
Yes, sir.
You know my partner, Ms. Stevens, and you know Mr. Nolder, and we represent Jason.
Yes, sir.
I promised the judge that we would get the jurors out by quarter till, so I'm going to go a little fast. All right?
Okay.
Sorry, Joe. Detective, with the CERT team, the goal is to give a complete, full picture, right, of all the evidence.
Yes, sir.
And that's also because you know it's going to be reviewed administratively by the division, correct?
Yes.
As well as by the prosecution
Yes.
team, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So your job is to interview people on the scene, correct?
Yes.
Not just any law enforcement officer that was on the scene, correct?
Yes.
But also civilians that may have heard or seen something.
That's correct.
And in this case, Ms. Sheila Staniford was interviewed, correct?
I don't believe she was interviewed by me.
No, not by you, but by
No,
one of your
yes.
detectives.
Yes, sir.
And that interview took place on December the 4th.
Okay.
And that was tape recorded, and that a copy was given for your complete case file, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And so the ladies and gentlemen of the jury understand, all the information is given to you, you do a complete case file and then turn it over.
Yes.
So you're the person with all the information.
Seemingly, yes.
And so Officer Rosser was interviewed on the scene, correct?
Yes.
Deputy Barnhart, correct?
Yes.
Deputy Yurkowitz, correct?
Yes.
Those were all people that were involved somehow at the scene that day with this incident.
That's correct.
And the reason you want to get the interviews early is because you have a job to do as the lead CERT detective, correct?
Yes.
Your job is to take all the information you get and start poking holes in the case, correct?
Yes.
You're not poking holes one way or another, correct?
Non-biased investigation, yes.
Non-biased investigation. So you're not poking holes to help the prosecution, and you're not poking holes to hurt the prosecution.
Just, yes, sir.
Your job is to say, hey, somebody says X, does this hold up or not?
Yes.
Okay, is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Part of the information that Mr. Merkel just went over you was with regards to the AirPods, correct?
Yes.
Those were never given to the cell phone expert, Detective Howe, were they?
No.
And part of this involved the holster, correct?
I'm sorry. But
Part of your investigation gathered the holster, correct?
yes.
And you had that tested for blood and DNA, correct?
For blood, no.
For DNA, correct?
DNA, yes.
And there was no DNA on there, correct?
That's correct.
And from what you saw,
For each other, I know you're going fast, but still.
and from what you saw, there's no blood on there as well, correct?
Yes.
And you had the gun tested for DNA and blood as well, the handgun, correct?
Yes.
And that came back with blood of Casey Goodson and DNA of Casey Goodson.
That's correct.
You can answer.
Overruled.
That's correct.
And also, the CERT investigation, because it's with police officers involved, sometimes they give you a written statement, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in this case, you got a 10-page written statement from my client, correct?
Yes, sir.
You got that long in advance of disclosing any evidence to anybody, correct?
Yes.
So that statement was given to you prior to you releasing any information to the prosecution, the FBI, or anything like that, correct?
Of what I recall, yeah.
We would have no access to that, correct?
No.
Right. And your job is to then take that 10-page statement, and that's a voluntary statement, correct?
Yeah.
You may.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you. Detective, where we left off was, that was a voluntary statement given my client, correct?
Yes.
And you then take that statement and you put it up against witness statements, witness statements, correct?
Yes.
You compare it to physical evidence, correct?
Yes.
You compare it to everything that there is involved in the case, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're trying to see if it holds up or not, right?
Yes.
You compared it to the video that was played up there, correct?
Yes.
And you compared it to different body cameras that you listened to and watched, correct?
Yes.
Same with cruiser cameras, right?
Yes.
So you're the person that has the luxury of having this, and this, and you're comparing and see what contrasts and what works and what doesn't, right?
Yes.
Now, Detective Mounts was the lead scene detective, correct?
That's correct.
On December 4th, 2020.
Yes.
And he's in charge of CSSU and things of that information.
Yes.
And
Yes.
he was the homicide at that point in time in that division, correct?
Yes, he was.
And he's experienced at that, correct?
Yes.
So, Detective, you don't have any issues with anything you reviewed in my client's statement, correct?
Sustained.
Your job is to poke holes in that statement, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Detective.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you can step down. You can take your cup of water. Compliments of the court. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break for the evening. Do not discuss this case among yourselves. Do not permit anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence. It is your duty not to form and express an opinion on the case until it's finally submitted to you. So have a good evening.
All right.